For those of you who don't know, my name is Zoltan Istvan, and I'm a transhumanist. And most people have known me from writing the novel The Transhumanist Wager, which a book is about transhumanism that did fairly well and was pretty widely read. But about 6 months ago, I decided to take transhumanism to another level, a level that I felt was missing from the kind of environment out there that we are all trying to aspire to, an environment where we can use science and technology to radically improve the human being and to improve the human experience. What was missing was politics. In order for transhumanism, in my opinion, to make the kind of improvements that we want on society, the kind of improvements that we want on ourselves, we are going to need to enter the political field. And so I had, last October, formed the Transhumanist Party. And one of the reasons I did this is because I write a number of national columns. I write for Psychology Today, the Transhumanist Philosopher. I write for the Huffington Post. And I also write for Vice's Motherboard, a column called The Transhumanist Future. And this has allowed me a wide kind of area to cover, and also a huge audience. Between the three different types of mediums, I'm able to get a very kind of large message across. And as a result, I've spoken with some of my editors and said, hey, I'm thinking about taking on this project of forming the Transhumanist Party. With the formation of it, I'm going to most likely run for the 2016 U.S. president and put forth a very real campaign. A campaign not only that hopefully will help establish the Transhumanist Party, but also a campaign that will help spread the message. And my editors said, hey, this sounds pretty exciting. Why don't you go for it? So what happened is I, in conjunction with that, and also in conjunction with discussing with my wife, who was quite hesitant about the idea. I got to be honest, the publicity is tripled from before, and the amount of journalists coming into your house, and the amount of we now routinely check packages, and hate mail has increased. A lot of little things like that have happened, but she decided to go with it and say, hey, this is something that I would support too, and you'll probably be seeing and hearing more about my wife as the campaign progresses. But the important part here is that by forming the Transhumanist Party, we have created a political vehicle that ultimately can change the way that we look at transhumanism. Currently, we've been a group of scientists, engineers, a group of supporters that have been either working in laboratories or working wherever it is that we do, and we've been making great impact. For transhumanism is approximately 20, 30 years old. And there's been a lot of impact that they have made. But unfortunately, until we get the top politicians of the country discussing transhumanism, until we get Hillary Clinton saying, well, this is how I feel on designer babies, or until we get Jeb Bush, until we get Jeb Bush saying, we asked Jeb Bush the question, are you planning on stopping stem cell development like your brother did? Or something of that nature. Will you stop other radical technologies? The real question is, if it's not asked to them and if they're not speaking about it, can transhumanism grow as far as it should? My answer was no. My little thing went off, it looks like, but that's okay. Oh, there's a password. Let's see. Sorry, there's a thing went off.
Oh. Yeah, you'll have to talk to Monica there. Oh. She just wants to find your slide.
Password.
Oh, password. Well.
So you know what? It's going to do this every time after a certain...
I'll fix it.
If I just need to touch it every few minutes, I can do so. Oh, there we go. So
You got it? Okay.
As beautiful slide that it is, does it really matter if we see it anymore?
Yeah, I suppose it's not important. Anyways, but I will continue. The real important question here, though, is regarding my editors and some of the national columns, was how can we get the real leading candidates of the United States presidency in the next election to address transhumanist issues. That is one of my most important goals of my campaign. Is, of course, as everyone can already guess, I'm not going to be winning the election. I've said that up front from the beginning. This has very much to do with how can we use the Transhumanist Party and how can we use it as a vehicle, literally, to get into the other politicians' minds and into their strategy sessions and say, well, can they win other people over? Can they get their own electoral base interested in the idea? And if so, will they be beneficial for the transhumanism movement? I have no doubt that if we get Hillary Clinton to even discuss the word, now bear in mind, Al Gore has mentioned the word transhumanism in his books, so it's not like it's completely an unknown concept to some top politicians. But if we can get them to discuss it, if we can ask them, well, how do you feel about an artificial global arms race? How do you feel about people using brain implants to protect themselves from trauma, or, as an article I pointed out, perhaps some type of rape or kind of domestic abuse? How can these issues of technology be moved into mainstream America and also protect its citizenry and also be beneficial for the politicians that are asking these questions? Because it's going to be very dicey for somebody like Hillary Clinton to say or give an opinion on designer babies. It's way too thorny. If you think abortion was thorny, or if you think some of the other issues that are out there are thorny, transhumanism is far more thorny. We're talking about trying to eliminate death. We're talking about people replacing body parts like their arms with bionic ones just because they are better. This kind of somehow, for most people, challenges their sense of identity, their sense of what it means to be a human being. It's not exactly the proper or the best material to run a political campaign on. So unlikely that Hillary or Jeb Bush or whoever's going to be the leading candidates of the major parties are going to be discussing them, unless, as a group, we are able to present these issues to them and present some type of voter base, some type of organization, hence the Transhumanist Party, that can actually make it so that it's important that they address it. We bring it to the table to them, we lock them in a box with these ideas and say, well, here it is. You have to address it now because everybody is talking about it. What are you going to do with ectogenesis? How does that change the conservatives' attitude either on abortion or on genderism or in post-genderism? These are incredibly important concepts, and not only are they happening basically today in a lot of science labs, but they're going to be happening in a general societal way in the next 10, 15 years. It's going to impact everyone. And whatever politician is elected in 2016, if they last 8 years, they're going to see it in the process, in the politics of the country. So one of the main goals of the Transhumanist Party was to take it and to literally try to interject into national politics this idea, and to do it in a way where media has to pay attention, because it's just so explosive. When you say things like there's going to be an artificial intelligence global arms race, who's going to win? What if North Korea develops artificial intelligence first? Will they break all the nuclear codes of America and of Russia? You can see all of a sudden how explosive this becomes. It's the same thing when we talk about artificial wombs. What if we take away the ability, well, not necessarily take away, but what if we change and make it so that women no longer need to actually have babies? Do they want to remain women? Do men want to remain men? Maybe we're going to get to some kind of society that doesn't even consider those things. Maybe sex is only going to be done through a chip in the head. These are things I've written about, and the stuff that's going on in the transhumanist future of sex is crazy. There's already people doing virtual online things in the sexual nature. And over the next few years, it's going to get incredibly complicated. Even another one, I just wrote an article on a pretty well-known pastor who's trying to convert, who's planning on converting robots and artificial intelligences to following Jesus Christ. It's true. And because America is represented by about 75% of a Christian population, I have, to some extent, even as an atheist, I have advocated for him saying, if that's what makes you happy with transhumanism, please go with it, because maybe that'll be the very quickest way that we can all get the rest of the country on board to say, hey, let's spend some money on life extension science, as opposed to this kind of conflict between Christians and transhumanists that everyone knows exist. But these are the challenges that I'm trying to get other politicians to face. And I believe that if they can do it, and you're going to see my articles increasing. I'm going to start hopefully throwing, as we know who are some of the front runners, you're going to see me throw their names into the titles of my articles as I try to challenge them and hopefully get them to respond. And if not get them to respond, get the other publications to respond and say, well, what will Hillary say with this? What will they do in this case? What about that case? And this is one way that I believe that the Transhumanist Party can be very effective in helping move forward the entire, environment of politics in this country, which has been pretty stagnating for, as I think most people know, for decades and potentially even, certainly decades. So we can take American politics into a new era, especially with some of the technological stuff that's coming. Eventually we're going to get to a point when we might all be able to vote instantaneously just from our cell phones. And will that improve the amount of voters? Will it only be, right now it's like half show up at the polls, but maybe we can get something like 90%. That could be very different indeed. We might have a very different country as a result. So the Transhumanist Party is taking on all these tasks. It's very small right now. It's just been started. Everybody is unpaid. It's on a volunteer basis only, but we've had some incredible people recently sign up. Aubrey DeGray has signed on as the anti-aging advisor. Maria has signed on as the longevity advisor. Hank Pilsier is our secretary. Natasha Vita-Moore has recently, just as of yesterday, signed on as, I think it's going to be the human enhancement advisor. So we're getting more and more people putting forth this effort to try to bring politics into the transhumanist game. And I feel this is very important because once this happens, once we can get it into the national conversation, I think everyone's going to be very excited about discussing it. And that's kind of wrapping up what I just wanted to say with the Transhumanist Party, but I'll be happy to take some questions. But ultimately, the Transhumanist Party was formed to promote an agenda of transhumanism and in a very centric way, in a way that is not designed to cause controversy, not designed to scare the country further than it is, but to say, hey, the modern world is coming, the 21st century is changing, and it's very important that we have a political entity that asks very difficult questions and pushes forth an agenda that ultimately can change the way we all live. And we're hoping that some of the bigger parties will end up accepting some of that agenda and incorporating it into their own political platforms. And if they do so, then we might just see the entire, environment of healthcare, of technology, of just well-being in America change just because people have said, okay, it's time to fund transhumanist technology. So that's the end of my speech.